Hey, Arhim, are you sure it's safe to parkour up here? It's kind of windy.
No, don't worry about it. I know it may seem a little dangerous, but trust me, everything is fine.
Are you sure? That's quite a way. Why don't we just parkour on the ground? Isn't that?
This is the way we deal with new recruits. It has to be done like this.
What if I trip?
You're not gonna. You'll be fine. Trust me. Just believe in yourself. That's all you gotta do is believe.
Is this some type of sappy after-school program?
No.
What is this?
School children are dead. Okay, we're trying to save their lives by parkouring, and you're denying them of that.
I guess I can't argue with that logic.
All right, go.
All right.
You got this, man. Trust me. Oh shit! Oh! It's like the 5th recruit this week. God damn. Stop putting me in this job. Yeah. Oh, a new recruit? His name's Crane? No, alright, we'll just tell him to come up here. Yeah, alright. Yep, alright, bye.
Okay, to begin with, I didn't see Techland being able to pull this game off. Considering if you look at their pedigree for games, Dead Island Riptide, I even did some digging and I figured out that they're the ones who made Chess 2001 for Windows. So needless to say, they don't have the best pedigree for zombie games. And so, how did they make Dying Light so good? I don't understand. Where did this come from, Techland? Where was this their ideas when they were making Dead Island? Because they sure did not have their heads together when they were making that game. So I have no idea where this came from, but thank goodness they came out with it, because this is a brilliant start to 2015 gaming, you guys. Now, there are some little nicks and tweaks that they should have done post after they were done fixing everything up, but I'll get into that later. The first nick that I have with the game is its story, because to be honest, it's painfully cliche. In every regard to every zombie flick you've ever seen, and every zombie game you've ever played, it is completely cliche in every category you look at it. The characters, the story, the environment, the bad guy, everything's just a giant cliche after another. But it's still a good story. You can turn a cliche into a little interesting story, but it's not going to be as impacting as it could be if it's original. But if you see everything coming over and over again, it kind of affects the storytelling, to be honest. A little recap for anybody that doesn't know anything about Dying Light. It's basically generic man A is working for Umbrella. I mean the GRE, sorry. Unless there's no difference. There's just no difference at all between the two. They're an evil organization out to get money, accidentally creates a virus, blah 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 blah, weaponized virus, blah 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 blah, so on and so forth, cliche after another. But when you actually get to Haran, as they call it in the game, as I don't know why. Anyway, he moves on to the city, he meets survivors, he gets attached, of course he figures out the GRE is actually evil, they want to weaponize the virus, so on and so forth, cliche after cliche. It's just a cliche fest everywhere, cliche there, everywhere's a cliche. It's terrible. I really wish they could have thought of something original. Even the zombie suppressant, it's called Antizin, but you might as well just call it Zombrax, because that's what it is in the game. Your main character gets bitten. Frank West. It's just no original anything in this entire game. I don't understand why they couldn't just have put their brains together and thought of something original. Just one thing, I would have been happy. But they did. Everything is ripped from every zombie thing you've ever seen. But like I said, that doesn't make the story completely garbage. Even if it's one giant cliche and you see what's coming before you actually turn the corner each time, you meet some interesting characters throughout the game, like Rahim, the interesting young soon-to-be leader.
Hey, I'm looking for the... Are you the boss?
What, am I too young? You got the problem with my age?
And then you meet Brecken, the parkour instructor, who actually has a very touching moment in the game.
This is where we get the announcements about the antacene drops. And they've just stopped.
There were kids in there.
And Karim, which is the Russian guy. You know, you always have a Russian. It's standard in a zombie apocalypse.
There you are. Rai said you'd be coming by. I'm Karim.
Crane.
An American. I have an uncle there. Lives in Texas. You from Texas? You a cowboy?
I'm from Chicago.
Okay, Al Capone.
But one thing that bothered me about the story, and this really bothered me when I was playing through, was that the female interest, and quote-unquote interest, because she only shows up at the beginning of the game to save your ass from a bunch of zombie infected, and then your character somehow feels obligated to return the favor, and you basically do, eventually, and for some reason there's an emotional attachment between these two characters. And no spoilers here, but something happens to this female interest, and I think they wanted the players to feel something about it, and I don't know why they thought we would, because we meet her literally a handful of times throughout the game, and it's not like she's funny. It's just downright hysterical how they want us to feel something at this emotional moment, but it completely is anticlimactic to the player, because we're like, yeah, oh no. Alright, moving away from the story, get that, please get that out of here. We're gonna move on to environments and the graphics, which is outstanding. And this is the purest example of what next gen should be this year, and especially with MMOs coming out, it's gonna be, the world designs are gonna be bigger and more dynamic. But Dying Light made the wise decision not to downgrade itself to Xbox 360 and PS3. It decided to make it a full-fledged next-gen console game, which I thought was a very wise move, because a lot of the things that are happening in Dying Light, previous gen would not be able to handle at all. So I'm glad that they decided to stick their heads out of the ass and decide not to do that for just extra bucks, instead of actually just trying to make a next-gen console game finally. Like I said, it takes place in the city of Haran, and there's really only two parts of the city you're going to be exploring most of the time, and trust me, it's big enough, because you're going to be parkouring all across this map, and getting from one edge of the map to the other is going to take a pretty long trek, especially when you're stopping every 5 seconds to nail every zombie you see in the head. It becomes a bit of a trek, I'll be honest. But there's the slums, and then there's Sector Zero. And what Sector Zero is, it's the nicer area of the city. They don't really get very into detail, but it's basically where the outbreak first occurred. Those are the only two maps you get to explore. There's no skyscraper map or anything like that, but Sector Zero is the closest thing you're going to get to it. It's high rooftops, consistent rooftops all the way throughout Sector Zero, which I kind of wish we got these giant skyscrapers that we got to leap from and go use zip lines and stuff like that, but I don't really have much complaints about the map design. I thought it was really thorough. And then of course we have the zombies, which being a zombie game, they need to be right. Their AI need to be right. They need to be perfectly stupid, but then again a little bit smart. They can't be bonehead retarded throughout the entire game, but they can't be exactly smart enough to actually do damage to you consistently. I feel like they did this very well. The AI are unpredictable, definitely. They're going to be throwing whaps at you that you're not going to expect. All of a sudden he's going to throw one whap, and all of a sudden he's going to get ready, and all of a sudden you're like, should I dodge or should I just whack you back? And I love the unpredictableness of their attacking. It's downright fun to just watch the zombie and see is he gonna attack? Is he gonna, or what? But that's just the normal zombies that you're gonna be dealing with. Don't get me wrong, they are downright stupid most of the time. I even witnessed most of these zombies just walk blindly into a spike trap, and they just die instantly, and you get the points from it. So I just like to stand on top of a building right in front of a spike trap and just watch them all just come up to me and just walk themselves into their own death. Those are the normal biters like they like to call it. I swear if they called it walkers, I would have been done with the game. Besides the normal brain dead infected that you'll mostly be encountering throughout the game, you have these half infected, I guess you'd call them, zombies called virals, and basically they're much smarter than the average brain dead zombie. They'll actually chase you and actually can climb too, and they're much smarter in combat. They'll actually keep their distance from you and actually wait for the perfect opportunity to come up and whap you in the face, whap you in the face, whap you in the face, over and over again until you're dead. If you get more than 3 on you and you're just starting to play the game, I suggest you run and book it to the nearest safe zone. And of course, being a zombie game, they have all the special infected you're used to. They have the spitter, they have a screamer actually, which is a small boy, which actually makes you really question when you kill it. You're just like, ugh, how can I live with myself now? And then of course you have the berserker, or I don't think they call they call it demolisher, I believe. Just these giant hulking zombies that try and kill you, basically. But of course, they're basically work the same, except for their AI are a lot smarter in this game than they were in Dead Island. Then the last enemy you'll mostly be fighting throughout the game are just regular humans that you'll be fighting that actually use weapons too, and actually throw throwing knives at you, and all of the sorts. And they are really well done AI. They're kind of like the virals, where they'll actually keep their distance and wait for the perfect opportunity to attack. But they're smarter than the virals, so if you get more than 5 on you at the beginning of the game, you might as well be dead, because it's almost impossible to keep dodging their attacks, especially that the combat system can be a bit hard to get used to when you first start using it. Moving on to what everybody has been noticing about Dying Light, which is different from Dead Island, and basically what everybody was saying, that it was just going to be Dead Island plus parkour. But that is not the case. It is parkour plus Dead Island. The parkour in this game is done simply enough so that it's really easy to do, but still adds this element of like timing and precision, actually be able to use it effectively. So I feel like they did that perfect balance to make it like easy enough so you can actually traverse the environment easy enough, but it takes a little bit of skill and timing to actually make it platform each time. The fighting mechanics in this game is actually surprisingly done really well, and actually I'm surprised of how much it feels different from Dead Island, because it is done by the same developer, so I was assuming blindly and ignorantly that it was just going to be the same and not much improvement onto their own system, considering that Dead Island and then there was Dead Island Riptide was basically Dead Island 0.1. That's all it was to me. So I was kind of thinking that Techland was going to make the same mistake in Dying Light and not really improve the combat system at all. But my god, was I wrong. This combat system is very polished and is superbly done. It's really hard to do melee combat in the first place, especially in the first perspective, because you don't really feel like you're the one actually throwing the hits. They did it superbly here to actually make it feel like you're the one actually throwing the hits and you're actually the one in combat. So, good job Dying Light, I gotta admit. But of course they have the repetitive things where mostly you'll be spamming the kick attack and dodging most of the game. But it takes some skill to actually get used to, use effectively. So it's kind of like a repetitiveness, but also it takes a little bit of skill each time you use it. And obviously, Dying Light brings 2 new things to the table. Besides parkour, which everybody's been talking about, they have the day-night cycle, which isn't new in gaming at all. It's, in fact, already been done multiple times in most games, and it has changed the gameplay in other games too. But here in Dying Light, it feels like they completely changed the formula whenever it turns night. Because it goes from this action-adventure game to a downright horror game. Because you'll be trying to traverse the night, trying to hide from these things called volatiles, which I don't even know what they are. They're highly evolved zombies that just, I was scared to bejeebus about whenever I was playing the first night. Oh no. Ah! Oh my god, that was... Ah! No! Don't do this to me! 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 I don't want this at all! I'm sure! I'm sure! I don't want it! I don't want it! Oh! 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 God! Climb! 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 Ah! Run! Oh! Just crafting does make a return in Dying Light, but I feel like it's a bit more improved and more useful this time around. Because actually in the skill tree, which I'll get into a little bit later, is actually helps your crafting more. It actually makes it so you can use the same materials for different blueprints so that you can kind of conserve and reuse items that you already found. And the elemental damages feel like they do a bit more this time around, instead of just being a shiny little like token on your weapon or katana on Dead Island. This time, they're actually, they have all the standards from Dead Island. They have electricity, fire, poison, or whatever they call it, toxin. And electricity is my favorite personally, because you can go around and start whapping zombies, and they start just shocking each other, and they just basically just all drop dead. So I feel like that's the most useful in the game, and I highly suggest using that one when you play, but that's just my personal preference. And the skill tree. Now, the skill tree in this game is actually a lot better than most in any game, actually. Because I usually, whenever I go into a skill tree, I'm like, whatever, just attack, dodge, whatever. But in this game, I actually read through each one, because each one actually gave me a huge advantage over zombies and the survivors in the game. It's not like it's dumb little abilities that you want to skip and get to the epic ones at the end. Each one keeps improving your ability to survive in the game. I feel like they must have put a lot of thought in each one of these abilities, because not one of those abilities I find unuseful and really dumb. The skill tree is split into 3 branches: Survivor, Agility, and Power. In Survivor, you mostly focus on abilities like traps and your grappling hook, which grappling hook is kick-ass. It is single-handedly a game changer when you get it. Because when you're playing through the game, usually you have to you have to really climb up these buildings, I have to climb, it takes so long. When you get the grappling hook, you say screw it, and you just go up instantly. It's a game changer when you get it. And then besides the grappling hook, you get the ability to camouflage, all these useful abilities that just help you throughout the entire game. And then you move on to agility, which is really going to improve your stamina bar and running and climbing faster. And also abilities to evade, like vault. And let me tell you, vault is possibly one of the most useful ones you're going to get in that tree. Because you can just run up to zombies and just pole vault over them and over and over and over again. You can just run through an entire crowd and just look down and you're just like, hey, sup, bros? And you just can walk right through them. There's nothing stopping you. And unless there's a spitter that just spits you down, but what you gonna do? And in the power tree, it mostly focuses on your stamina when attacking, and also unlocks new abilities to heavy attack, ground pound, all these useful abilities to actually clear out the zombies instead of running from them. And then finally we have co-op, which, to be honest, in any game it just triples the fun automatically. But in Dying Light it feels like it quadruples the fun, because you get to run around with your friends and you get to see them using these parkour abilities also, and also you get to play through the entire story. That's what I liked about Dead Island. One of the very few things I liked was that you get to play through the story with your friends, instead of only going around and only doing the sandbox features and side quests. You can actually go through the entire story with your friends, instead of just having to go through the single player campaign and then going back and playing with your friends. That's a bore. There are some miscellaneous things that I just didn't like about the game. How there was valuables that you could collect to sell for money. And I found that I believe that 90% of the population of Haran did not die from the infection population. They died from alcohol poisoning and lung cancer. Because when you're looting bodies, that seems like to be the number 1 items that you pick up from. Alcohol or cigarettes. And I wish they could have added a bit more to that, because it just seems like, I realize you're in the slums, but even when you get into Sector 0, the nicer part of town, you're still finding cigarettes and alcohol on almost everybody. So I feel like they should have added a little bit more valuables, like, I don't know, like a wallet, or even just like a cell phone or something like that. But, you know, hey, that's just a miscellaneous thing. When you play through the campaign of Dying Light, it takes about an average about 12 hours to complete. And if you really stretch it out and play all the side quests and go do all the side activities, it'll be about around 22 hours. So I gotta say, this is a big chunk of game for a while, especially considering the mess around value that you're gonna get from the game. Just joining your friends co-op and just going around and messing around the entire time, now that is fun. There is one more feature I want to talk about real quick, which is I talked a little bit about the co-op feature, but they also added a kind of like a 1 versus 4, kind of like Evolve actually, which is kind of strange because Evolve's coming out in a couple weeks. So they're adding this feature in Dying Light, which sadly is only available to pre-purchased or pre-ordered buyers right now, but it'll be I believe it'll be available to everyone eventually. But this co-op feature includes one volatile, which is the zombie special infected at night that wants to rip your face off and shove it up your asshole, against 4 other players. And the objective for the players is destroy enough nests to win, and then the objective of the monster is to kill the players until they run out of lives. Which is a really fun mode to play with your friends, especially if you have enough friends to play the game mode. Because it can be a barrel of laughs, because you're just walking around night and you just see this volatile just jump at your face and rip it off. So I feel like this was a really nice little multiplayer addition to the game, since they don't really have a proper multiplayer. Now time for the grand tally of this game. Geek, what would you give this game? I'd give it a solid 9 out of 10. There is no doubt this game deserves any less than that. I believe that this game, the only flukes it had was really in its story. And that's really about it to me. Of course, they have some minor gameplay glitches, and they have some flukes with the combat system and parkour system, but I really couldn't see anything else wrong with the game besides that little foible. So I'd give it a nice little geek approval and say you should go out and geek all over this game. Just all over it. Bring it home, play it, have some laughs, have some fun, kick some zombies down some stairwells. But until then, I'll see you guys next time on a Geek Review.